He grabbed the microphone. Wait, cut the feed. Tunde's voice cracked across the studio, louder than the host's, louder than the polite applause that had just filled the room. But the cameras didn't stop. Across from him, on the massive LED screen, the CEO leaned forward, eyes steady, voice calm. "Why are you panicking?" she asked softly. "You haven't even answered my question." Tunde swallowed. Sweat gathered at his temple. "I don't know what you're talking about." A faint smile touched her lips. "Then let me make it simple," she said. "Do you still call your wife a liability, or have you found a new word for her?" The studio fell silent. Tunde's fingers tightened around the microphone. "My wife is not relevant to this discussion." "Ex-wife," she corrected. The word hit like a slap. He froze, and for the first time since stepping onto that stage, confidence left his face completely. The host shifted uncomfortably. Perhaps we should refocus on the business pitch." "No," the CEO interrupted, her voice still gentle but now impossible to ignore. "This is the business." Tunde shook his head, forcing a laugh. "Who are you?" She tilted her head slightly. "Look closely." And just like that, the past came rushing back. Because once upon a time, before the suits, before the cameras, before the power, she was his everything. And he threw her away. Years earlier, Amara had sat on the edge of a small mattress, counting the last of her savings, while Tunde paced the room, frustration etched into every movement. "This is the last investor meeting I'm going to," he snapped. "If this one fails, I'm done." Amara looked up at him, calm, despite everything. "It won't fail." He laughed bitterly. "You don't know that." "I do," she said quietly, "because you're not walking in there alone." He stopped pacing. "What does that even mean?" Without a word, she reached behind her and pulled out a small velvet box. Tunde frowned. "What is that?" She opened it, her wedding jewelry, every piece. His eyes widened. "Amara, no." "I've already decided," she said, her voice steady even though her hands trembled slightly. "Sell it. Use it for business." "That's everything you have." "That's everything we have," she corrected gently. He stared at her, conflicted. "What if it doesn't work?" She stood up and walked to him, placing the box in his hands. "Then we start again," she said. "Together?" For a moment, he said nothing. Then slowly, he pulled her into an embrace. "When I make it," he whispered into her hair. "We make it." She smiled against his chest. She believed him. Back in the present, Tunde's grip on the microphone loosened just slightly as the memory flickered across his mind. The CEO's eyes didn't leave his. "Do you remember that day?" she asked. His throat went dry. I don't know what you're talking about." But his voice betrayed him. The audience could hear it. The host leaned forward, sensing the tension. "This seems personal. Perhaps we should take a break." "No breaks," the CEO said. "Not today." She turned her gaze back to Tunde. "Tell them," she said quietly. "Tell them how your company started." Tunde forced a smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. Like every great company, it started with a vision, hard work, and sacrifice. "Whose sacrifice?" she asked. His jaw tightened. "Mine," he replied quickly. She let out a soft, almost amused breath. "Interesting," she said, "because I remember it differently." And just like that, the control he thought he had began to slip. If you're watching this right now, pause for a second. Where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments. It's always amazing seeing how far these stories travel. And if you haven't subscribed yet, this is your moment to hit that subscribe button like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear this. Because of this story, it's just getting started. Years ago, success didn't come overnight. After selling her jewelry, the money gave Tunde one more shot, but it wasn't enough. Investor after investor turned him down. This isn't scalable. You don't have the structure. Come back when you have real numbers. Each rejection hit harder than the last. One night, Tunde slammed his laptop shut. I'm done. Amara looked up from her notebook. You said that yesterday. And I meant it today, he snapped. She didn't react to his tone. Instead, she flipped her notebook around and pushed it toward him. Look at this. He sighed, but leaned in anyway. What is it? A revised model, she said. You've been focusing on short-term growth. That's why they're rejecting you. He frowned, scanning the page. This changes everything. I know. She said simply. He looked up at her, surprised. When did you do this? While you were sleeping. There was a pause. Then slowly, a smile spread across his face. This could work, he said. It will work. And for the first time in weeks, hope returned. That model? It became the foundation of his company, the turning point, the thing investors couldn't ignore. But when the success finally came, everything changed. The office grew bigger, the meetings became more exclusive, and Amara became invisible. At first, it was subtle. You don't need to come to this meeting. You wouldn't understand this deal. Just trust me, okay? She did, until trust started feeling like silence. One evening, she stood at the entrance of a high-profile networking event, adjusting her simple dress while watching Tunde laugh with a group of well-dressed executives. He hadn't invited her, but she came anyway, because she still believed she belonged by his side. As she approached, one of the women in the group glanced at her and smirked. And who is this? Tunde hesitated, just for a second. But that second said everything. This is Amara, he said finally. No title, no introduction, just her name. The woman raised an eyebrow. Oh, I thought you said you were single. Amara's heart skipped. She looked at Tunde, waiting, hoping. But he didn't correct it. Instead, he laughed it off. It's complicated. Complicated. That was the moment something inside her cracked. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough to change everything. And from that moment on, the distance between them became impossible to ignore. This wasn't just a love story anymore. It was the beginning of a betrayal that would echo all the way to a live television stage years later where nothing would stay hidden. And what happens next? That's where everything escalates. The music at the event grew louder, but for Amara, everything sounded distant, muffled as if she were underwater. Complicated, she repeated, her voice low, controlled. Tunde avoided her eyes. This isn't the place. No, she said, stepping closer. It's exactly the place. You just told everyone here I don't exist. A few heads turned. The elegant woman beside him folded her arms, watching with interest. Let's not do this, Tunde muttered. You're embarrassing me. Amara let out a soft, disbelieving laugh. Embarrassing you? She gestured around. I stood by you when you had nothing. I built that company with you. And now, I'm embarrassing you. Lower your voice, he snapped. But she didn't. Tell them the truth, she said. Tell them who created your first model. Tell them who funded your last chance. Tell them who stayed when everyone else walked away. Silence fell over the group. Tunde's jaw tightened. Go home, Amara. 3 words. Cold. Final. The woman beside him smirked again. Honestly, this is awkward. Amara really looked at her this time. You can have him, she said quietly. Just make sure he doesn't run out of people to use. Then she turned and walked away. That was the last night she ever stood beside him as his wife. The divorce came quickly. Too quickly. Papers arrived without warning, no conversation, No closure, just signatures and silence. Amara sat across from him one final time in a lawyer's office, staring at the man she once believed in. "You're really doing this?" she asked. Tunde didn't meet her eyes. "It's better this way." "For who?" "For both of us." She nodded slowly, absorbing the lie. "And everything we built?" she pressed. "Everything I gave?" He leaned back in his chair, exhaling impatiently. "You didn't build anything, Amara. Let's not rewrite history." The words hit harder than anything before. She blinked. Once, twice, as if trying to process what she just heard. "You really believe that?" she whispered. "I know it," he replied. There it was. Not just betrayal, but erasure. She picked up the pen. For a moment, her hand hovered above the paper. Then she signed. Not because she agreed, but because she understood. The man she loved no longer existed. As she stood to leave, she paused. "Tunde," she said. He looked up, mildly annoyed. "One day," she continued, her voice calm but firm, "you'll remember exactly who I was to you." He scoffed. "I doubt that." She held his gaze for a second longer. Then I walked out. This time for good. The months that followed were brutal. No safety net, no support, just silence and whispers. She got lucky and lost it. She couldn't keep up with his level. She was never really part of the business anyway. Every word reached her, every rumor, every assumption. But she didn't respond. She didn't defend herself. She disappeared. Not out of weakness, but out of strategy. If you've ever been underestimated, you already know silence can be power. And right now, tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your country below. We're building a global family here. And if you're not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share it with someone who needs this reminder. Never underestimate a quiet comeback, because the world forgot Amara. She was rebuilding herself, piece by piece. At first, it was survival. Small jobs, consulting work under different names, late nights filled with research, learning, planning. She studied markets, analyzed trends. I watched companies rise and fall. And slowly, she began to see patterns, weaknesses, opportunities. The same things she once pointed out to Tunde. But this time, she wasn't doing it for someone else. She was doing it for herself. One night, sitting alone in a dimly lit apartment, she stared at her laptop screen. A blank document. A new idea. She hesitated. Then I began to type. This time there would be no shortcuts, no dependence, no shared credit, just her. Weeks turned into months, months into years. And quietly, something started to grow, not loudly, not publicly, but steadily, strategically. Amara built her company under a different name, different identities, no connections to her past, no room for recognition. She moved carefully, calculate every step. While others chased attention, she built power. Her first breakthrough came unexpectedly. A small firm, she advised, saw massive growth after implementing her strategy, then another and another. Word spread, not about her, but about the results. She's good. No, she's different. Who is she? No one knew. And that's exactly how she wanted it. Meanwhile, across the city, Tunde was living the life he once dreamed of. Luxury cars, exclusive events, new partnerships, and the same woman from that night is now always by his side. On the surface, everything looked perfect, but cracks were forming. He just didn't see them yet. Back in her quiet office, Amara leaned back in her chair, reviewing a new proposal. A larger company, struggling, poor management, but potential, a lot of it. She tapped her pen against the desk, thinking, then smiled. This could work. It wasn't just about building anymore, it was about positioning, and she was getting closer, closer to something bigger, something inevitable. Years passed. And then, the shift happened. Amara's company, now a rising force in the industry, began making moves, strategic acquisitions, quiet investments, calculated risks that paid off. People started paying attention. Where did they come from? How are they moving this fast? Who's behind this? The mystery only made it more powerful. And then, one day, a name crossed her desk. Tunde's company, struggling, declining, drowning in poor decisions. She stared at the file for a long moment. No emotion on her face, just focus. Then she opened it, line by line, detail by detail. And as she read, a slow, deliberate smile formed. Of course, she murmured. He had made the same mistakes she once warned him about, but this time there was no one to fix them. She closed the file. Prepare an acquisition strategy, she told her assistant. Full control. Amara paused, then nodded. Full control. The game had changed, and Tunde didn't even know he was already losing. But the real moment, the moment everything would come crashing down, it was already being set in motion. A major business network announced a special live segment, Rising Giants versus Failing Empires. Tunde was invited, a chance to save his company, to pitch, to secure investment. And the mysterious CEO? She would be there, watching, listening, deciding. He saw it as an opportunity. She saw it as timing, perfect timing. Because what he thought was a second chance was actually the beginning of the end, and the stage was already set. The studio lights felt hotter than usual. Tunde adjusted his tie for the third time, forcing his breathing to slow as assistants moved around him, checking microphones, fixing angles, and whispering last-minute instructions. This is your moment, one of his team members said quietly. Just stay focused. He nodded. Focused. That's what he needed to be, because everything depended on this. Across the stage, the host smiled into the camera, voice polished, confident. Tonight, we bring you a special segment, Rising Giants versus Failing Empires. And joining us, one of the most talked about CEOs in the industry today. The audience applauded. A woman whose company has redefined strategy, power, and growth. She rarely appears publicly, but tonight she joins us live. The giant screen flickered. A silhouette appeared, sharp, composed, unreadable. Tunde narrowed his eyes slightly. Something about her presence felt familiar, but he shook it off. Impossible. Let's begin, the host continued. Tunde, you've requested investment support. Tell us, why should this CEO believe in your company? Tunde stepped forward, confidence returning like a mask snapping back into place. Because my company still has what it always had, he began smoothly. We've faced setbacks, yes, but every great company does. What matters is how you rise. The CEO didn't respond, just watched. Over the past few years, he continued, we've built a structure capable of scaling globally. With the right investment, we can recover and dominate. A pause. Then her voice came through, calm, precise. Recover from what? The question was simple, but it landed heavily. Tunde hesitated just for a second. Market fluctuations, strategic missteps, nothing we can't fix. Strategic missteps, she repeated. Yes. Whose? A flicker of irritation crossed his face. Leadership decisions. Mine. Interesting, she said softly. So you admit your leadership caused the decline? The audience shifted. Tunde forced a smile. Every leader makes mistakes. What matters, she interrupted, is whether those mistakes were avoidable. Silence. Tunde's jaw tightened. Of course they were. And yet, she continued, you ignored multiple warnings. His eyes narrowed. What warnings? A beat. Then, the ones your wife gave you. The words cut through the air like a blade. Tunde froze. The audience murmured. The host blinked, caught off guard. Perhaps we should stay on the topic of business. This is business, the CEO said again. Her tone hadn't changed, but something in it had sharpened. Tunde swallowed, trying to regain control. My personal life has nothing to do with... Everything to do with it, she said. A document appeared on the screen behind him. Charts, notes, handwritten annotations. His breath caught. He recognized them. Impossible. These, she said, were your original projections, before you changed them. Tunde turned slowly, staring at the screen. His heart started to pound. How do you have this? He demanded. She didn't answer. Instead, another document appeared, a revised model, cleaner, smarter, more effective, the one that had turned everything around years ago. No, he whispered under his breath. You remember this one, she said quietly. His fingers tightened around the microphone. That model, she continued, is what saved your company. The audience leaned in. The tension was thick now. You presented it as your own, she added. Tunde turned back toward the screen, anger rising. What are you trying to say? She leaned forward slightly. Tell them, she said. Who created it? I did, he snapped immediately. A pause. Then, look at me, Tunde. The way she said his name, something shifted, something undeniable. Slowly, reluctantly, he lifted his eyes. The silhouette moved, light adjusted, and for the first time, her face became clear. The room went silent. Tunde's world stopped, because staring back at him, it was Amara. No longer the woman he left behind, but something else entirely. Stronger, sharper, untouchable. His lips parted slightly. You, she held his gaze. Say it, she said softly. The microphone trembled in his hand. Amara. A collective gasp swept through the studio. The host's mouth opened, but no words came out. Even the crew had frozen. This wasn't just a business segment anymore. This was something else, something real, something dangerous. Tunde shook his head, disbelief flooding his face. This isn't possible. And yet, she replied calmly, here I am. If you've made it this far, don't just silently drop a comment right now. Where are you watching from? We want to see every corner of the world tuning in. And if you're not subscribed yet, this is your sign. Hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share it. Because what happens next, you don't want to miss it. Tunde ran a hand through his hair, trying to process what he was seeing. You disappeared. No? She corrected. You just stopped looking. The words hit harder than anything else. You built this? He asked, his voice lower now. Yes. Everything? Yes. A bitter laugh escaped him. That's not possible. You don't have the experience. Intelligence? She finished for him. He didn't respond. He didn't need to. She smiled faintly. That's what you thought back then, too. Another document appeared on the screen. This one wasn't old. It was recent. Financial records, hidden transactions, offshore accounts. Tunde's face was drained of color. What is this? The host asked, voice shaking slightly. Amara's eyes never left Tunde. This, she said, is the truth behind his strategic missteps. The audience erupted into whispers. Tunde stepped forward, panic rising. This is false. Completely false. Is it? She asked. Another file appeared. Signed agreements, illegal deals, evidence, clear, undeniable. You cut corners, she continued. You manipulated figures. You made decisions that didn't just hurt your company, they hurt people. Stop this, he said sharply. You don't know what you're talking about. I know everything, she replied, and the way she said it made it impossible to doubt. You think this is revenge? She went on. It's not. Then what is it? He demanded. A pause. Then, accountability. The word landed like a verdict. The host looked between them, clearly overwhelmed. This is serious. Are you saying these allegations? I'm saying, Amara cut in, that every piece of evidence has already been submitted. Tunde's head snapped up. Submitted to who? She held his gaze. You'll find out soon. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. For the first time since the broadcast began, Tunde had nothing left to say, and everyone could see it. Everything he built, everything he protected, was collapsing. Right there. Live. In front of the world. And Amara? She didn't raise her voice. She didn't celebrate. She simply watched. Because this wasn't about destruction. It was about truth. And the truth was finally catching up. The silence in the studio stretched longer than anyone expected. Tunde stood frozen, the microphone still in his hand, but his grip had weakened. The confidence he walked in with was gone, replaced by something raw, something desperate. You planned this, he said finally, his voice low, almost unrecognizable. Amara didn't flinch. No, she replied calmly. You planned this years ago. I'm just finishing it. A ripple moved through the audience. The host cleared his throat, trying to regain control. This has taken a very serious turn. Tunde, do you have any response to these allegations? Tunde let out a shaky breath, running both hands through his hair. This is a setup. That's what this is. She's twisting things, taking old documents, old ideas, and trying to make it look like something it's not. Amara tilted her head slightly. Old documents? She repeated. Let's focus on something current then. Another file appeared on the screen. Contract. Signed. Dated. The host leaned forward. This is from last year. Amara nodded. A deal with a shell company. Funds moved through 3 different accounts before disappearing completely. Tunde's eyes darted to the screen, then back to her. That's business structuring. You wouldn't understand. Don't do that, she cut in, her voice still steady but now edged with steel. Don't pretend I don't understand. You built that habit while I was still covering your mistakes. The audience murmured louder. You're lying, Tunde snapped, but there was no force behind it anymore. All of this is personal. You're trying to destroy me because you couldn't handle... Handle what? She interrupted. His words caught in his throat. She leaned closer to the camera, her gaze unwavering. Handle being erased? She asked quietly. Handle being told I built nothing? Handle being reduced to complicated in a room full of strangers? Each word hit harder than the last. Tunde looked away, and that more than anything told the truth. If you're still watching, this is where it gets real. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching from right now? We want to see every country, every city tuning in. And if you've been following this story, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, because stories like this, they deserve to be heard everywhere. Back on stage, the host shifted in his seat, visibly unsettled. Amara, these are very serious claims. Are you saying legal action has already been taken? Amara didn't hesitate. Yes. Tunde's head snapped up again. You wouldn't dare. I already did. His breath hitched. For months, she continued, I watched. I gathered everything, every transaction, every decision, every time you crossed a line thinking no one would notice. You were spying on me, he demanded. I was protecting what you were destroying. The distinction was clear, and it left no room for argument. You think this makes you powerful? Tunde shot back, grasping at whatever control he could find. You think sitting there, exposing me like this makes you better? Amara paused, then slowly she shook her head. This isn't about being better, she said. It's about being honest. The simplicity of it made it heavier. I gave you everything, she went on. Not because I had to, but because I believed in you. And you didn't just walk away, you rewrote the story like I was never there. Tunde's eyes flickered, something almost like regret surfacing for a split second, but it vanished just as quickly. "You're doing the same thing now," he muttered. "Controlling the narrative." "No," she replied. "I'm correcting it." Another silence, but this one felt different. Final. The host looked down at his notes, then backed up, clearly struggling to process everything unfolding in real time. We've just received confirmation from our producers." He hesitated, then continued. "There are authorities on standby." A collective gasp filled the studio. Tunde's shoulders tensed. "You called them here." Amara didn't answer directly. Instead, she held his gaze. "I told you," she said softly. "You'd find out soon." For the first time since this began, fear fully settled in. Not anger, not denial. Fear. He stepped back slightly, looking around as if searching for an escape that didn't exist. "This isn't over," he said, though his voice lacked conviction. Amara's expression didn't change. "No," she agreed. "It isn't." A moment passed, then she added, "But my part in it is." The weight of that statement lingered, because it wasn't just about the investigation, it was about closure. She wasn't there to fight him anymore. She wasn't there to prove herself. She had already done that. Now she was simply done. If you've stayed with this story until now, you already understand the message. But before we close, tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your country below. Let's see how far this story has reached. And if you haven't subscribed yet, take a second to do that, like this video, and share it with someone who needs this reminder. Never underestimate someone you once had power over. Back in the studio, footsteps echoed faintly from the side entrance. Not loud, but noticeable. Tunde heard them. Everyone did. His chest rose and fell quickly now, panic no longer hidden. "Amara," he said, his voice softer, almost pleading, "you didn't have to do this like this." She studied him for a moment. I really studied him. And for the first time since the reveal, there was something in her eyes. Not anger, not satisfied, just distance. "You're right," she said quietly. He blinked, surprised. "I didn't have to," she continued, "but you left me no other choice." The truth of it settled, between them, heavy, unavoidable. The host sat frozen, unsure whether to speak or stay silent. The audience watched, completely still. And Amara? She leaned back slightly, her composure untouched. "I didn't destroy you," she said finally. The same calm tone, the same steady gaze. "I just stopped protecting you." The words landed, and this time there was no response, no argument, no denial, because deep down, Tunde knew it was true. The screen flickered slightly as the broadcast continued, but the energy had shifted completely. This wasn't a pitch anymore. This wasn't even a confrontation. It had an ending, and Amara had already moved past it. "Thank you for your time," she said, turning her attention briefly to the host. He nodded slowly, still processing. Thank you for joining us." She gave a small, polite nod. Then the screen went dark, just like that. She was gone, no dramatic exit, no final look back, just silence. But her presence remained, in every document displayed, in every truth revealed, in every consequence that would follow. Tunde stood alone on that stage. The lights are still on him, the cameras are still rolling, but everything else gone. His empire, his control, his narrative. All of it had slipped through his hands, not in private, not quietly, but in front of the world. And somewhere, far from the noise, far from the chaos, Amara stepped away from her screen. No applause, no celebration, just a quiet breath. A calm moment. Because this was never about revenge, it was about truth. And now that the truth was out, she didn't need to stay. Her company would keep growing, her name would keep rising, not because of what she exposed, but because of what she built on her own. And for the first time in a long time, she was no one's shadow, no one's support system, no one's complicated. She was simply unstoppable. And that was something no one could ever take from her again.